The attack comes just days after police officers in Belgium arrested Salah Abdeslam, who is believed to be a key figure in the attacks in Paris this past November. After his capture, Republican frontrunner Donald Trump declared that the attackers and their associates should be waterboarded. And after this attack, he doubled down on the idea that the United States needs to ban all Muslims from entering the U.S. Republican runner-up Ted Cruz tried to one-up Trump's idiocy by declaring in a press statement today that, quote, "We need to empower law enforcement to patrol and secure Muslim neighborhoods in the United States before they become radicalized," end quote. But would these extreme proposals from Cruz and Trump really do anything other than put a match to the Constitution, all while boosting recruiting for ISIL? For more on this, we go to Robert McCaw, Government Affairs Department Manager and Capitol Hill Representative for the Council on American-Islamic Relations, CAIR. Robert, welcome back to the program.
Thank you for having me again, Tom.
Nice to have you with us. What are your thoughts on these radical proposals from Trump and Cruz today?
Well, first off, I woke up this morning and my wife and I were horrified at the news, as Americans, as Muslims, just as human beings. So our thoughts and prayers were with the people of Belgium. These proposals are the wrong way to go. There's nothing more than ISIS wants than to divide Western nations against their Muslim citizens, to bring about draconian policies that will disenfranchise Muslims and hopefully, to some ISIS plan, drive them into radicalization. We don't need our politicians or our presidential candidates carrying water for ISIS. And so when you look at Ted Cruz's proposal to, better patrol Muslim neighborhoods, what is a Muslim neighborhood? This isn't 1930s ethnic enclave Brooklyn. Muslims live in the suburbs. Do
maybe
I get a special?
Dearborn.
Well, maybe in Dearborn, maybe in Jackson Heights, but by majority, Muslims live in the suburban areas. So do I get a special patrolman knocking on my door? Does he get to check my Trump-issued Muslim ID?
Apparently.
It's a scary race to the bottom. We have about 7 more months to the election. I really want to know where we're going to go next.
Yeah, I do too. It's very concerning. Your organization, CAIR, the Council on American-Islamic Relations, recently called on both Trump and Cruz to fire a number of their advisors. Including, is it pronounced Walid Phares, P-H-A-R-E-S?
You're correct.
For Trump, and Frank Gaffney, and I was astonished, retired General Jerry Boykin. This is the guy who, during the invasion of Iraq, in his uniform, on a stage, said to a group of people that his God was bigger than their God. I mean, it was like some sort of, male, I guess it's in line with Donald Trump, except this is a Cruz advisor. It's with Donald Trump, so, how big my hands are.
Boykin also says the Constitution doesn't apply to American Muslims or their faith.
He did?
Yes.
Boykin?
Yes.
Yeah. So what message does it send to the world? What message does it send to Muslims around the world who might otherwise be uninterested in American politics when the leading presidential the two leading presidential contenders in one of the major the only two major political parties in the United States are using advisors like Gaffney and Boykin?
How are we as a nation going to work with our allies overseas, other Muslim countries, in fighting ISIS when we have Trump saying that the religion of our allies hates us? How is the Cruz administration going to deal with Muslims when, he favors these types of policies of advisors that say our God is better than yours? Yeah. I just don't see how we're going to cultivate mutual respect.
Yeah, at the very least, and it seems to me that this would be the kind of thing that would cause people to think that the United States actually has it out for them. And, at the same time that Trump and Cruz and buddies are peddling, we're the victims, American victimhood, wouldn't it be very, very easy for a demagogue in some other country, a Muslim demagogue in some other country, to point at this kind of rhetoric and say, see, I told you, they're out to get us?
I think you're frankly right. And when you look at Ted Cruz taking on Frank Gaffney as an advisor. Who is Frank Gaffney? He's the leader of the Center for Security Policy, which is a recognized hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center. So if you have a hate monger informing you on your national security policy, or national foreign affairs policy, I don't see how that's going to deal well for America.
Who's Walid Phares? This is a Trump advisor. I'm unfamiliar with him.
Sure. So he's been more in the background of the Islamophobia network, but in the 80s he was a big deal when the country Lebanon had their civil war, when it was Muslim versus Christian versus Druze. He was an ideological leader of the Southern Lebanese army. He's the one that turned a regular militia into a Christian militia, which has been accused in countless courts of war crimes. And so you actually have a war criminal advising U.S. presidential campaign.
Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And then apparently Trump went on Fox so-called News on their morning show, and twice they said, well, you must not hate Muslims. You've got this Muslim working for you, Walid Phares, and it turns out not only is he not Muslim, he's Christian, but not only is he Christian, or at least he calls himself that. I think Jesus would disavow this, but he was teaching other Christians how to kill Muslims.
Exactly.
In Lebanon.
It's deeply disconcerting. And Walid Phares actually plays into the same category of Frank Gaffney and Boykin, where they have a conspiracy theory that somehow 2% of the nation, Muslims, are going to infiltrate every level of the government and overthrow American society as we know it. It's very paranoid thinking, and it's very dangerous thinking, and this is what is informing Trump. This is what is informing Cruz.
Yeah, shades of the 1950s,
maybe the 1930s and 40s.
How so? You mean in Europe?
Yes. I'm very concerned. Right now we have Trump. He said, I'm going to have to shut down some mosques. I'm going to have to spy on every mosque. I'm going to have to register every Muslim in a database. Maybe they're going to need to carry special IDs. You have Ted Cruz who's saying, well, maybe we need to better patrol these theoretical Muslim neighborhoods. Maybe a couple weeks from now we're going to say, well, maybe we should have checkpoints in front of these neighborhoods, and later on let's build a fence. It scares me.
Yeah. Yeah. Could you give us a brief history of how ISIL grew out of the power vacuum that resulted from Bush's invasion of Iraq? Assuming that's a reasonable baseline assumption.
Going with that assumption...
We have about 2 minutes.
Sure. So essentially, going with that assumption, the U.S. cleared out the Saddam regime. There was a power vacuum. We installed the Maliki government, which is a Shia-backed government, as the main central figure, but in a power-sharing situation with the Kurds in the north and the Shias and the Sunnis. However, once America declared victory and left Iraq, the Maliki government had pro-Shia policies, which essentially disenfranchised a number of Muslim communities. He cleared out all the Sunnis in the Iraqi army, which further alienated Muslims and provided this power vacuum, which led to the rise of groups like Al-Qaeda in Iraq, and then later on replacing them in a struggle for power, ISIS.
And these are both principally Sunni groups, correct?
Yes, Al-Qaeda in Iraq and ISIS are principally Sunni, although they only in name, because what they practice doesn't follow with what Islam is.
Sure, sure. They, in stepping into this power vacuum, though, wow, is there any, how do we undo that? Is there, I don't know where we go from here. Any suggestions?
I think we have to work with our allies in the Middle East. We have to create a comprehensive strategy to confront ISIS, and it won't be done by alienating our allies, saying that their religion is one that hates us and that their people can't come to our country.
Yeah, it sounds like a great start. Robert McCaw, it's great to see you again.
Thank you again.
Thanks so much for dropping by tonight.